You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. During the next hour, the Archdiocese of Chicago brings you programs about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning. Welcome to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Father Greg Sakowitz, the rector of Holy Name Cathedral, and co-host Mark Teresi, executive director of the cathedral. We are live streaming, so Mark waved to the cameras, and at the same time we are physical distancing. But Mark, I think you are right. In a couple of weeks, we will no longer have to have our masks on because we both got our second shots. My last one was last Saturday. Your second shot was when?
Ash Wednesday.
Ash Wednesday?
Yeah.
Oh, so you're
I'm good.
You're good to go there. So how you doing?
Good. You know, it is interesting. Once we had the shots, my wife and I are talking about Easter. We won't have our 35 extended family folks. We're going to have just a few friends, some family, and they've all had their shots. I mean, that's how we're approaching this. And I'm sure many people are.
And I would really highly recommend folks do get the shots.
Yes.
On my first shot, no reaction. Second shot, the arm was a bit sore, slight headache, a little bit tired. Now, some people have gotten very sick for 24 hours, but I think it beats the alternative. And our time in Chicago now is 8:02.
Oh, by the way, go Ramblers.
Oh, that's a given.
Please.
What a suffocating defense. The whole city is excited about the Ramblers. They play Oregon State Saturday, 1:40. I think it's CBS Channel 2. And this is fun. It's Sweet 16.
It sure is.
To get to the 8, to get to the Final Four. And our good old friend, Sister Jean.
Oh,
she's an
wonderful.
icon. She's a legend. And 101.5, sharp as a whip, that mind, and articulate in here so well. And God bless Sister Jean.
The funniest line was they had asked her what she did in preparation for the game. She said, I prayed for Illini a little bit, and then I prayed for the Ramblers a lot.
A lot. And it's amazing. And Illinois is a great basketball team and program. But Loyola outplayed them, suffocating defense, and it was a great game. We have a great program lined up in the first half, the Catholic-Assyrian dialogue. And with us by phone, we have the very Reverend Tom Bema,
yes,
Vicar for the Ecumenical and Interreligious Affairs, the Archdiocese of Chicago, and Provost of the University of Steamboat Lake Mundelein Seminary. He's also a full professor in dogmatic theology. Father Bema is internationally recognized as an expert in ecumenical theology. He currently serves as a member of the Vatican's Joint Commission for Theological Dialogue between the Catholic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East. And also, beside having Father Bema, by the way, Tom and I are both graduates of 1971, our 50th year coming up, Notre Dame College Prep in Niles.
Wow.
So Tom and I met as freshmen in high school. So we go back many
You're
years.
those senior citizens that come back to the high school.
Exactly, to go back to our alma mater. And also with us this morning, the Reverend Core Bishop George Thoma is Core Bishop of the Diocese of Eastern United States and Rector of St. Andrew Assyrian Church of the East in Glenview, Illinois. A Core Bishop has a role similar to an Episcopal Vicar in the Latin Church. He is a sought-after author, lecturer, and teacher. So Core Bishop Thoma and Father Tom Bema, welcome to the program this morning. How are you gentlemen doing?
Welcome.
Good.
Very good,
How
Father
are you?
Greg. Good to hear you again, Mark.
Now, I remember, Tom, you were a guest a few years ago when Butler had those back-to-back years in the NCAA. In fact, Tom, did they make the actual final game in 2 years in a row?
Yes, 2 years in a row.
They made not just the Final Four, but they made the
The finals.
The finals.
Championship game.
So Tom and I go way back.
Didn't win, but they made the game.
Which is still
Tom
outstanding.
and I were together at the seminary for 15 years. We drove down. We were looking for funds to support the library, and we stopped. Or no, this was a different. We stopped at Butler because you had a meeting there, Tom. And if you remember, you made a connect so I could visit with the development department. But what you didn't tell me was their mascot is actually a live bulldog. I walked into the office and there's a bulldog.
Oh, yes, and Blue was there, yes.
Exactly.
Is that the name of the
Yes.
dog? Was Blue?
Yeah.
That's interesting. Now, Tom, when we graduated Notre Dame, which will be our 50th anniversary, class of 71, you went directly as a freshman to Butler.
No, I went to Benedictine University in Lisle to do pre-pharmacy. That was my original direction. Then I went to pharmacy school at Butler, and after the preclinical years, I switched to philosophy and religion to prepare to go to seminary. And then I came directly into Mundelein Seminary, but that cost me a year, so you ended up being an ordination year ahead of me.
79 for me, class of 80 for
me.
you. Exactly. And so maybe a question, first of all, I hate to have been talking at Side Talk, Core Bishop Toma, but, Tom and I go back so many years. But maybe let me ask, first of all, I need to ask this of you, Core Bishop Toma, and that is, what should our listeners know about the Christian community in Iraq?
The Christians of Iraq are considered to be one of the oldest continuous Christian communities in the world. And the vast majority of Iraqi Christians are indigenous in Eastern Aramaic-speaking ethnic Assyrians, who are the descendants of the inhabitants of the ancient Assyria and follows the Syria Christian tradition. However, some are also known by the name of their religious denomination as well as their ethnic identities, such as Chaldean Catholic, Syrian Orthodox Church. Christians, we have also Armenians and very small minority of Kurdish Christian, Shabaks, and Iraqi Turkmen. Most presently, Iraqi Christians are ethnically, linguistically, historically, and genetically, they consider themselves distinct themselves from Kurds and Arabs and other nationalities.
Now, Core Bishop, your church is in Glenview. Is that correct?
Yes.
And tell our listeners a little bit about how your congregation began. There's an interesting Catholic connect here.
Yes, we in 2001 we started the St. Andrew Mission Parish in Maryville Academy. I visited the late Father John Smith, and I explained to him we want to start a parish, but we don't have a place. So he said, here is the chapel of the Blessed Mary, and he gave me the key, and he said, all is yours. I said, what can I do? Should I pay you something or participate in expenses? He said, this altar was built to celebrate Masses on. The more Masses celebrated on this altar, the better. You are very welcome. Just pray for us.
Yeah, beautiful.
That would be John Smith.
It sure was.
That was Father Smith. And, of course, Tom, you knew him well.
And we did that for 7 years. From there, actually, we built ourselves. We built membership. Financially, we grow until we bought the Jewish synagogue in Glenview in 2008.
Beautiful.
And so now, is that, Core Bishop, is that church near Harms Road? Or?
It's right on Milwaukee Avenue.
Oh, the one on Milwaukee Avenue.
It's round.
Sure.
It's a round building, a circle round building.
Got it.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Next
to
a nursing home.
Which will be our next stop, Mark.
I was going to ask Father Tom Bema. Now, I remember we had created some videos, and there you were, I think, in the Holy Land with Cardinal Bernardini. So you've had an opportunity to work on a lot of international projects as a priest. What do you think our listeners need to know about Pope Francis to help them appreciate his efforts in the Middle East?
Well, that's a great question. Thanks for that. When Father Greg and I left seminary, I expected, that I would spend most of my priesthood working in Chicago parishes, because that's why you become a diocesan priest.
That's right.
But very early on, my interest in Eastern Christianity caused the diocese to ask me to do ecumenical work, which had not really been my interest. My interest was the academic side of Eastern Christianity. But, you go where the church asks you to go. And that ended up being kind of all over the place. And I was with a bunch of retired priests at one point at St. Joseph College Seminary for some party or something. And you always introduce yourself when you're in a group of priests, because we have so many, they don't immediately know everybody's name. So it's I said my name, and the guy goes, "Oh, you're that international guy." So that's kind of what my the last 40 years have turned into. Now, when we went to the Middle East in 1995 with Cardinal Bernardine, it was a very different situation. The peace process was at its height. There was a great deal of optimism. And, people really thought that, we were just on the cusp of everything kind of settling down. Of course, we know that's not what happened. And when you ask me about what Pope Francis brings to this, I think there is a unique contribution that our current Pope is making. And a lot of it originates in the fact that he is a bishop from the global South, okay? He's, although he has Italian ancestry, he is every inch a Latin American and a Latin American bishop. What that means first and foremost is that he comes from a post-colonial experience.
Now, say more about that, Tom.
Yeah, you can't understand the Middle East and really most of the world if you don't understand that the Europeans basically created the nation states that are there right now by drawing lines on a map. And the way you can tell that the Europeans, and particularly the British, were involved is they drew borders down rivers. Now, anybody that studies, religious geography knows that rivers are not borders, they're superhighways. They run through the middle of a community, they don't divide it. Okay? But that's not the way the British drew boundaries. So the map itself is artificial. And the very idea of a nation state isn't really part of the culture. There's no notion of that in Islamic history, for example. So the colonial situation in many ways sets up, what we're dealing with today. Now, Pope Francis, when he enters into this milieu, he doesn't enter it, as somebody coming out of that context. What he brings to the dialogue is what I would call a relational approach. You hear him talk quite a lot about fraternity, and then, people in the English-speaking world get crazy because it's a masculine word, and they, want to find a way that doesn't do that, thereby missing the whole point, which is what he's saying is relationships are the currency of dialogue. You can't have dialogue. You can't have dialogue if you don't have a relationship. Mark, you will remember Cardinal George going on and on at various times. If you get the relationships right, everything else will fall in place.
Right. It's true.
Well, that's what Core Bishop Toma just told us about his experience at Maryville, is they took the relationship as primary. And then look what happened, as a result of that. Now, there's another insight that Pope Francis has that kind of startled people in, professional ecumenical work. Is very early in his pontificate, he started talking about a different kind of ecumenism. We talk about the ecumenism of theological dialogue, the ecumenism of common service, the ecumenism of spirituality, and that he introduced a fourth. He spoke of the ecumenism of blood, by which he meant the suffering and the martyrdom that is occurring in these ancient Christian areas.
Wow.
That shocked a lot of people, but I think again, you can't understand what he's trying to do if you don't first recognize that he's a bishop of the Global South. He understands post-colonialism, and he also has this relational approach.
I have to admit, Tom, you certainly know your material phenomenally. And on that note, Mark, take us to a break.
Yeah, let's take a break, and we'll be back with Father Tom Bema and with Reverend Core Bishop George Toma to talk more about the Catholic-Assyrian dialogue. This is Catholic Chicago, WNDZ, 750 AM on your dial, 312-255-8408. We'll be back in a few minutes. Please stay tuned.
Hey, it's Timothy Johnston here from Liturgy Training Publications. Over the past few months, I'm sure you've found yourself at home more, whether it's working from home or watching live stream masses on Sunday mornings. As we began adjusting to this at the beginning of the pandemic, one of the things I missed the most was gathering with friends at the parish. That's why we at LTP have created this new virtual gathering series called Living the Sunday Word. We meet virtually on Thursday evenings each week and reflect on the upcoming Sunday readings. And with that, we share stories to help us more fully reflect on the Word of God. I'm inviting each of you to join us, a group of friends meeting virtually from all parts of the country. So visit ltp.org for more information and to register. You won't want to miss this.
Caring adults make all the difference in the lives of adolescents. Catholic Charities understands this, and our mentorship program provides a free opportunity for youth living in Lake County to spend time, virtually, with volunteers who genuinely care about them. This program is ideal for youths age 9 to 12 who may need support navigating the challenges of childhood and early adolescence. Our amazing volunteers serve as friends and role models who help youth recognize their strengths and empower them to reach their full potential. Catholic Charities conducts a thorough background check on every volunteer, and our program coordinator closely monitors and supports each relationship. Mentoring is a fun after-school program that is totally different from remote learning. Virtual group sessions help youth enjoy fun activities with their peers, too. We're connecting youth with great role models. Join us today. To learn more, call 312-937-3375. That's 312-937-3375.
We invite you to watch Catholic Chicago this weekend, featuring a conversation with Cardinal Blaise Cupich and video highlights from across the Archdiocese. Here's host Todd Williamson.
The effort to get vaccinated, why the Church is helping to spread the word. We'll go inside the classroom as a national study shows how Chicago's Catholic schools are keeping students on track during the pandemic. And too many people are going hungry. We'll visit a food pantry where Catholics are working to meet that need.
Watch Catholic Chicago Friday at 7 p.m. on Chicago Loop Cable, Channel 25, and Sunday afternoon at 3 on the Comcast Network, Channel 100.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ, 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Father Greg Sackwitz along with Mark Teresi, co-host, and our guests this morning are Core Bishop George Toma and Father Tom Bema, and we're talking to have a wonderful Catholic-Assyrian dialogue. And now Cardinal Cupich wanted to participate in this conversation this morning. His schedule prevented him from doing so. Vince Girasoli from the radio and television office spoke with him on the phone. We were able to record the Cardinal's reflection on Pope Francis's visit to Iraq. Take it away, Michael.
Cardinal, what's significant about the Pope's trip to Iraq?
What's significant is that it is the first time that a pope has traveled to Iraq, a mainly Muslim community, and already in anticipation of his visit, because of the favor it received from the Muslim community, the government passed a law making Christmas a holiday. It was a way of affirming that, on behalf of the Holy Father, to make this trip in a very difficult time, not only during the pandemic, but also given violence still for the social life of Iraq, told people that the Holy Father really does want to come, and that he feels a visit with the people of Iraq is important, not only for the minority Christian community and other communities, but also with the Muslim community. So it was historic in that sense, but it also was important for him to make contact, as he did, with the Ayatollah al-Sistani, a very holy man who doesn't receive people often. And just the picture of the two older men sitting there and talking about things that they have in common sent a great signal, I think, to the Christian and Muslim world.
Let's talk a little bit more about that signal, Cardinal, because clearly the Pope is trying to model something for Catholics. What should be our takeaway from that?
Well, I think, first of all, to make sure that we have respect for other people and that we value the diversity that's part of the human race. He sees his engagement with the Muslim world, which is quite vast and well populated throughout the globe, as an opportunity for shared values. Let's remember they're a theistic faith, just like the Jewish faith is, and Christianity. We all have our roots going back to Abraham. So we want to make sure that people begin to understand the Muslim world in a better way. But also to realize that harmony is something that we need to build on in a world so often plagued by tensions and violence, too often by people who misuse religion for their own political purposes. So what he wanted to do is to help Catholics understand that we should not be afraid of people of other faiths, but rather we should value what they have to bring to world peace.
Cardinal, thank you so very much for your perspective and for joining us today. It is always so helpful. Cardinal Blaise Cupich taking time out to be with us this morning.
Bishop Toma.
That was a great little message from Cardinal Cupich.
Yeah, you can see what a great ambassador for the Pope.
Absolutely.
I mean, he gets it.
He gets it.
Now, Bishop Toma, what are your thoughts about the Cardinal's comments?
I agree. I agree with his comments. Number one, that the time of Pope's visiting, when the whole world is really suffering the coronavirus, the pandemic, and also if you look at the age of the Pope, 84, yet he's not scared of the virus. He's not worried about his health. He is thinking more about other people than himself, what his visit will contribute to people who have been suffering for many years, the persecution, the invasion. So I believe his visit there sends a very strong message, number one, to the Iraqi government and the countries in the region, that Christians are not alone. They have a leader. They have somebody who is watching them, who is protecting them. That's one. Number two, he speaks about coexistence, and that Christians and Muslims and other denominations and ethnic groups, they are part of the of Iraq, and they have to coexist, and they have rights to live in peace together. I think that was plus he encouraged the Christians to be closer to each other, to stay there, to maintain and keep their identity, their culture, their religious culture, and their faith.
Now, both of you hold appointments to the Commission at the Vatican, which is working to bring about, full communion between the Catholic Church and the Assyrian Church of the East. During the last part of our program, what can each of you tell us about the progress towards unity as you see it? Maybe we'll start with Father Bema.
Okay. Well, I think it's important to know a little bit of history. If I can assume that Mark, you and Father Greg studied the same textbooks I did when we were in grammar school, and if you did, then the map that we studied of Europe, it ended with the Jordan River.
Okay. That's true.
I know it wasn't until I actually studied religious geography that I ever actually saw any map with details about Mesopotamia, and all of that. Our world was so European.
But just so you know, Greg flunked geography, but let's keep going. Go ahead.
Thank you for
Anyway,
sharing that,
Sorry,
Mark.
I'm sorry.
So,
Thank you for sharing that.
now, why were our maps that way? It's because that was the edge of the Roman Empire.
Okay, got it.
And the way we organized our way of thinking was, we're successors of the Roman Empire. Beyond that boundary was the Persian Empire. Now, the church that Core Bishop Toma is part of was the Christian church in the Persian Empire, which was enormous. They were the greatest missionary operation in the history of the world. They had sent missionaries and planted churches as far as China and even maybe to Japan, all along the Silk Road. But we knew nothing about that because,
That's true, Tom.
because of the trouble between Rome and Persia, our churches fell out of communion in 431. That's 1,590 years ago.
Wow.
Okay? So we simply grew up and developed without really knowing each other. So the full communion dialogue has a couple of advantages, and then I'll turn it over to Core Bishop Toma. Any full communion dialogue has three steps. First, you settle all the dogmatic questions. Next, you harmonize the sacramental life of the two communities. And then finally, you deal with questions of authority and ecclesiology. In other words, what's the role of the Pope vis-a-vis the Patriarch, things like that. We've made it through the first two steps.
Oh.
The dogmatic issues were settled in 1994. The sacramental life was settled with a statement in 2017. And we're now in the third and final stage. As you can tell, it takes a number of years to work through this.
What would be your guess for settling number 3, Tom?
I think I might live long enough to see it.
Oh.
But Tom, Mark and I won't, but you will. We're the same age.
Well,
how's your health?
Core Bishop Toma has been part of the dialogue much longer than I am. He's actually the senior member of it. So let me kick it back to you, Father George, and catch us up here.
Great.
Yeah, in the first visit of our late Patriarch Martin IV to Rome, he met with Saint John Paul II, and that was his suggestion that we have been apart from one another for 1,500 years, and let us do something to understand each other and remove some obstacles which stand in the way of unity. So Saint John Paul, he embraced the idea, and then they started to establish a mixed committee from both churches, 10 members, 5 from each, and that was in 95. And since then, I became a member. But prior to that, there was meetings informal for the dogmatic understanding or the dogma of both churches, for example, Christology, faith, and that was signed the document was signed by both leaders, St. John Paul and the late Patriarch. And in 95, officially, the commission was established, and I have been part of that since 95. There were 3 steps. The step number 1, as Father Bema said, the dogma of the church, the faith, and then the sacramental life, and ecclesiology or the institution of the church, or what you can call it, the primacy of Rome, the role of patriarch, and that's what we are doing today.
That's beautiful.
So the first stage or step is done. The second, the sacramental life is also signed and done, and now we are working on the third stage.
On that note, we need to bring this segment to a close. I want to thank in a very special way Core Bishop George Toma, Father Tom Bema. We could have gone 3 hours on this topic, and God bless both of you. And Tom, it's always great talking with you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing you in person one of these days. And very nice meeting you, Core Bishop Toma, on the phone. You've been listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM, 312-255-8408. Father Greg Sakowicz, Mark Tracy. The time is exactly 8:31 on this day here in Chicago. Stay with us, and again, do not touch that dial.
The Word Made Clear is exactly what its name implies. It's an easy-to-understand explanation of the Word of God, the Gospel. Hello, I'm Father James McElhone, Director of Biblical Formation for the Archdiocese of Chicago. I'd like to invite you to take our free online Bible study program by going to thewordmadeclear.org. Our website offers an audio-based guide to the Gospels of Mark, Matthew, Luke, and John. Listen to my lectures and follow along with the handouts provided. There are even discussion guides. You can also explore the biblical roots of the Mass. And there are links to a wide variety of biblical sources that will benefit both teachers and students of the sacred scriptures. Just go to wordmadeclear.org to experience our free online Bible study program. Again, it's free at wordmadeclear.org. It's the Word of God. Enjoy.
The Cemetery Ministry is a core ministry of our Catholic faith tied to the corporal works of mercy. It's comforting to know that our Catholic cemeteries are caring for the remains of our loved ones awaiting the resurrection. There are 44 Archdiocese of Chicago Catholic cemeteries willing to help you in your time of loss. Call 708-449-6100 or visit CatholicCemeteriesChicago.org. Catholic Cemeteries, serving the Catholic community since 1837.
Catholic Charities Schreiber Center for Human Services is now open in Round Lake. Due to the pandemic, we are limited in the number of in-person programs that we currently can provide. However, a food pantry is open twice a week, and a Wednesday night supper is held with to-go meals every week. A wide range of senior services are now offered as well. If we can assist you or someone you know, please call us at 847-546-5733. That's 847-546-5733. Before, during, and after COVID-19, Catholic Charities is here for you.
You're listening to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. Every Monday through Friday from 8 a.m. to 9 a.m., the Archdiocese of Chicago presents programming about the people, events, and issues that touch our lives. Thanks for letting us be part of your morning. Now again, Catholic Chicago.
Welcome back to Catholic Chicago on WNDZ 750 AM. The time is exactly 8:34 on this beautiful Thursday morning here in Chicago, but I think they're talking rain later on. And 312-255-8408. Mark, that was a great first half of the program we had with the core bishop and Tom Bema. We've even another great second half lined up. Take it away, Mark.
Our guest during this half of our program. First, Dr. Dan Olson, who's the director of the Office of Ecumenical Interreligious Affairs for the Archdiocese of Chicago. Dr. Marcia Hermanson, who is the director of the Islamic World Studies Program and professor in the theology department at Loyola University.
Go Ramblers.
Go Ramblers, again, where
Go Ramblers.
she teaches courses. I'm trying to be serious, please.
Me
In
too.
Islamic studies and the academic study of religion. She's an accomplished author and a tremendous leader in this field. And then Dr. Scott Alexander, who's a professor of Islamic Studies, Christian-Muslim Relations at Catholic Theological Union in Chicago, where from 2000 to 2020 he served as founding director of the school's Catholic Muslim Studies program, and most importantly, as grandpa of 5, his wife of 36 years is Karen Lewis Alexander. She's vice president of development, Chicago Children's Museum. The most important part for me, together, Karen and he are expecting their first grandchild in June. Inshallah, God willing.
Inshallah.
Well, welcome, Dan. Welcome, Dr. Marcia and Dr. Scott. Welcome to Catholic Chicago.
Good morning, Jen. Dan, how are you? It's been a while since I've seen you, Dan.
Yeah, it has. Good to hear your voice and see you online, Greg. Father Greg, hope you're doing well.
Well, yeah, the pandemic has been hard on everybody, and but hopefully we're beginning to see light at the end of the tunnel, and it'll never be quite normal, but I always tell people God is with us and God will see us through. And maybe a good way to begin this discussion. First, we have a real all-star lineup here this morning. Can you speak about your understanding of the significance of Pope Francis's recent trip to Iraq for Muslim-Catholic relations? Who'd like to lead that one?
I could start us off if that's fine with you.
Kick us off, Dan.
I'd like to amplify the Go Ramblers as a graduate of Loyola. I just want to add to that.
In fact, Mark is, you are, I am. We're all, and of course, Dr. Marcia is a professor there, so she's a Go Rambler too.
Exactly.
Definitely.
More to the point, though. I want to speak about what I heard Tom Bama speak about in the first program, namely the relational approach that the Pope was trying to model for Catholics and others. He often welcomes people at the Vatican, but he's made a real strong point of going out into the world, meeting people where they are. And his visit to the Grand Ayatollah al-Sistani kind of opened up in a new way a dialogue with the Shia population. He's often visited the Al-Aqsa Mosque and the Sunni population, which is the majority. But it was real telling that he made a point to visit the Grand Ayatollah. He was very well received there. And so that was another gesture, and I believe the Cardinal mentioned that in his reflection earlier. One other thing I might mention, I'd be interested to hear the thoughts of the other guests. He visited the plain of Ur, which is the historic birthplace of Abraham. And I think he was trying to draw attention to our common heritage in Abraham as Jews, Christians, and Muslims. And I think that was another historic gesture that he did to bring attention to that fact.
Dr. Marcia, any comments on Pope Francis' recent trip? And then Dr. Scott?
Yeah, if you'll bear with me, I'll make a slightly longer comment. So preparing for today's interview, I did some Googling and, papal visit to the Middle East. And by chance, I pulled up an article from May 2001 about the visit of then Pope John Paul II to the Umayyad Mosque in Damascus.
Mm-hmm.
And that was apparently the first papal visit to a mosque. So what I'd like to draw our attention to and reflect on is how much has changed in just 19 years. First of all, on the positive side, I think the idea of a papal visit to a Muslim country or a pope going to a mosque is no longer, odd, strange. I mean, it's important, but it shows that over the past, over a decade, there's been a lot more interaction with Muslims, and especially the current Holy Father has given so much more attention to Muslims at all levels, from the refugees in Italy, washing the feet of Syrian refugees, or, engagement with Sunni Muslims and now Shia Muslims. So that's a big move. But let me quickly remind us, from May 2001, what has happened between the West and Islam, right? So 9/11, the war on terror, the wars in Iraq, the Arab Spring, the civil wars and deterioration in multiple countries, and especially Syria, and the rise of ISIS. So this kind of shared, part of the rubric for the trip was the martyr church. But one could also say, the devastated Middle East. Exactly. So I think responding to that cry and to this, upheaval crisis is part of the significance of this trip.
And how about your thoughts, Dr. Scott?
Yeah, I agree completely with Marcia's observations. They're very important. And in fact, to add to, the sense of kind of an enormous change in transition, both the impact of, these horrible sort of events that have torn at the fabric of the human family, but then, the response of people like Pope Francis to this. When Pope Francis issued his encyclical Fratelli Tutti, siblings all on the Feast of St. Francis last year, in October in 2020, he talks about how his inspiration for writing Laudato Si was the Orthodox Patriarch, the ecumenical Patriarch Bartolomeo in Istanbul, and his encounters with him and discussions he had with him about the sacredness of the environment and the need to care for God's creation. And he says, the inspiration behind this encyclical on human fraternity is my friend, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, Ahmed Tayyib. And, it's buried kind of in the, just the third or fourth paragraph of that document. But it's really significant for a pope to say that an encyclical letter is inspired by his friendship with a Muslim colleague, with an important Muslim religious leader.
Those are great comments. Dan, you were on the program the last time. I'm going to ask a very elementary question. You answered it so beautifully. But again, because we have many new listeners from the last time you were on the program, we hear the word Muslim, we hear the word Islam. Differentiate, what is the difference between the two?
Well, in my understanding, Islam is a religion, and a Muslim is a practitioner of that religion, such that, like a Christian is a practitioner of the Christian faith. So it's the religion compared to the person or believer. Correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you get an A for that one, Dan.
You bet.
I didn't see too many of those, Scott.
You could take it a few steps further because they come from the same root. It's the same root in Arabic that evokes a sense of security and the integral wholeness of everything. Salam, peace. The word Islam literally means the surrender of one's life to God, placing God at the center of one's life, the unique center of one's life. And the word Muslim is for a person who engages in the practice of that surrender of one's life to God, the placing of God at the center of one's life. So
Scott,
they're really...
Scott, I just gave you an A.
Oh, thank you.
Take us to break, Mark.
It's a different kind of A. WNDC 750 AM on your dial, Catholic Chicago. Our number is 312-255-8408. We'll be back in a few minutes. Continue our conversation with Dr. Dan Olson, Dr. Marcia Hermanson, and Dr. Scott Alexander. I'm going to ask when we come back, I'm going to bring up our zip code, and then I'm going to ask you to reflect on the diversity in our neighborhood and how do we live out understanding this dialogue.
Catholic Charities staff members work every day to end poverty and homelessness. We do this on a one-to-one basis with anyone who asks for help. We also work with organizations who study these issues across our city, state, and nation. The Wilson Sheehan Lab for Economic Opportunities, or LEO, at the University of Notre Dame is one of these research centers. Through our partnership with LEO, Catholic Charities has gained valuable insights into scientific evaluation methods that determine the most effective interventions to help people avoid poverty and homelessness. Along with our experience and compassion, trusted research is helping Catholic Charities offer hope and so much more to anyone in need. For more information, visit CatholicCharities.net.
Hello, I'm Cardinal Blaise Supich. I got my COVID-19 vaccination, and you should too. It took just a few seconds and was painless. The Food and Drug Administration determined the new vaccines are safe and effective, and the Holy See, as well as the United States Conference of Catholic Bishops, has concluded getting the COVID-19 vaccine is an act of love of our neighbor and part of our moral responsibility for the common good. We have lived with the pandemic for many months, and I know we're all getting tired of it. Vaccination is one of the most important ways you can protect your health and the lives of those you love and help bring the pandemic under control. When it is your turn, I urge you to be vaccinated. And remember to do your part by wearing a mask, washing your hands, and watching your distance. Thank you, and God bless you all.
We're back. WNDZ, 750 AM on your dial. Catholic Chicago, 312-255-8408. We're speaking on Catholic-Muslim relations with Dr. Dan Olson, Dr. Marcia Hermanson, Director of Islamic World Studies at Loyola University, and Dr. Scott Alexander, Director of the Doctor of Ministry Program, CTU. My question, it's a little probably off-centered, but I think it probably might be where a lot of folks are. We live in the 60659 zip code. It's probably, I think, statistically the most diverse zip code in the city, which means we go to Aldi's, we see everybody. Everybody shows up. Our daughter's special needs, she's 27. She grew up in that neighborhood. She doesn't see the differences in people. She just sees people. But how do we, in terms of neighborhood folks, how do we connect with this dialogue and make it real?
I'd like to respond to that because I think it's a great question. One of the things that we walk away from the Pope's extraordinary visit to Iraq from is, that this is a great moment in Christian-Muslim relations. But if you look more deeply into the kinds of things the Pope was talking about there, he was talking about solidarity with those most on the margin, and that this is actually the proper end of all dialogue, because the dialogue that God wants to have with humanity is a dialogue of redemption and wholeness and reconciliation for the whole human family. And in fact, one of the Pope's inspirations for going to Iraq was Nobel Peace Prize winner Nadia Murad, who she won the Nobel Peace Prize in 2018 and wrote a book called The Last Girl. Mm-hmm. And she's Yazidi. She's not Muslim. Yazidis are a minoritized population in Iraq, and they're neither Muslim nor Christian, and they suffered greatly with the rise of ISIS. And she was one of these young women who was enslaved, by ISIS. And the Pope talked a lot about in his remarks at war. He talked a lot about the examples of young Iraqis who came together across traditional religious lines in solidarity to help heal the nation. He talked about, young Muslim volunteers in Mosul who helped repair churches and monasteries, kind of lifting up this spirit of human fraternity. And then when he diagnosed what the problem was, he was making reference back to Fratelli Tutti, where he said, no one is saved alone. Still, the temptation to withdraw from others is never ending. Mm-hmm. Yet at the same time, we know the notion of everyone for himself will rapidly degenerate into a free-for-all that could prove worse than any pandemic.
That's
and so what he's talking about is, and so here in Chicago, right, here in the United States, we're riven by divisions that I think the Pope would say ultimately have their root in greed, in the perpetuation of poverty, in the structures of systemic racism. And so what we need to do in the dialogue here in Chicago, what needs to be done in the dialogue in Iraq, the dialogue everywhere, is for people of different faiths to dig deeply into the treasure of their faith tradition and say, how do we work together for those who are on the margins, for those who are oppressed, and for those who struggle for their liberation?
That's a great response, Scott. In fact, along those lines, Marcia, as a Muslim scholar, share with our listeners your experience of teaching Islamic studies at a Catholic university, Loyola.
Yes, well, certainly the Catholic universities and specifically the Jesuit schools have increasingly hired Muslims to be part of their theology departments and religious studies departments. So there's almost a kind of informal association of Muslims teaching Islamic studies at Catholic universities. And there's an increasing presence. Like one of those Jesuit universities in Michigan, I think, is pretty well majority Muslim in the student body, or at least something like 35%. Well, of course, Georgetown and Loyola both have significant Muslim enrollment and a significant presence of Islamic studies in the curriculum. So I think in a university, in a Catholic university context, there are several contexts where we could talk about Catholic Muslim relations. For example, in the curriculum, does the university have space in the curriculum for diverse subjects, diverse religions, diverse ethnicities, and addressing race? And of course, the Catholic universities, so many all across America, institutions and universities are trying to address systemic racism. And the Catholic universities and of course the Jesuit social justice mission demands that they be at the forefront. But that's not a new thing. This interest and focus has been increasing for a number of years. Now, besides curriculum, there's also what we might call the pastoral component or the hospitality component of increasingly having Muslim chaplains. So aside from the academic presence of Muslims in the curriculum and as professors, there are now Muslim chaplains at many Catholic universities who minister not only to Muslim students, but in an interfaith capacity. Because, of course, chaplaincy has become increasingly, an interfaith mission. And then there may be specific dialogue activities.
Well, and part of it is, now you take that thought and move it to Dr. Alexander. As a Catholic scholar, you're at CTU. You're teaching Islamic studies. You're having an impact on future religious order. You're talking with and teaching potential or maybe present leaders in religious communities. What are your thoughts about that in terms of the impact of what you're doing?
Yeah, well, it's been extraordinary. I think in part, the program began like our elder sister program, the Catholic Jewish Studies program, which is as old as the school is, in response to the call of Nostra Aetate, really, to reach out in fraternity and build bridges with our sisters and brothers of other faiths, especially Jews and Muslims. I'm thrilled that over the past year we've been able to hire a young Muslim scholar as a full-time faculty member at CTU. He's the first full-time Muslim scholar at CTU, and he is now director of the Catholic Muslim Studies program. And this is very important because we have had Muslim adjunct professors and Muslim students at CTU for the last 20 years, for the entire existence of the program. And the presence of Muslims, as teachers, as colleagues, as co-learners in the lives of our students, our Catholic students who are studying for various degrees in ministry, and particularly our seminarians, who come from all over the world and who are going to be ministering in a variety of different contexts all over the world. To be able to say, as one passionist priest said after he graduated, he said, I can begin a sentence that sort of every Catholic priest can begin, but I can end it in a way that very few can. And I said, how's that? And he said, well, the beginning of the sentence is when I was in seminary, and the end of the sentence is my Muslim colleagues and professors used to say.
Wow. Yeah, that would be quite unique. And, and just in the last minute and a half here, Dan, I need to ask you a question. You've been doing this ministry for a long time here at Diocese Chicago. Is what, for you personally, has been an inroad that you have seen since you started this ministry with this work?
Maybe I want to build on some earlier things that Scott and Marcia said. And part of it is, in this particular year, I want to think about, during pandemic, it reminds us we're all in this together. It affects us all in the same way. And we need to find new ways of working together. It's also exposed the inequalities ever more clearly in our society based on race and other things. So can we come out of this time that we're in right now with a forged unity around some of these things that we're seeing? I think that's the present moment and the change I'm seeing is our people of faith, our goodwill actors willing to come together in new ways to solve these age-old problems.
So moving forward, you're hopeful.
I am. I think I really am that I'm seeing new things, that we're finding new people reach out to our office wanting to collaborate. We're seeing a lot more of that right now than I recall when I first started in the office.
We need to bring the program to a close. I want to thank in a very special way Dr. Dan Olson, Dr. Marcia Hermanson, and Dr. Scott Alexander for joining us here on the program this morning, Catholic Chicago. We could have gone with this segment another 3 or 4 hours and just talking about this. So thank you very much for joining us, and God bless in the work that you do. And especially for Dr. Marcia Hermanson, go Ramblers.
Yes.
This Saturday against Oregon State. So special thanks.
And go grandchildren.
And Grandpa Alexander.
Have a wonderful day, everyone.
And Grandpa Scott. And Grandpa Scott. And thank you to co-host Mark, Grandpa Teresi, and the great work of our producer engineers, Michael May, Brian Hockey, Hitman Brock. Thank you for joining us here on Catholic Chicago, WNDZ, 750 AM. God bless all of you. Have a wonderful weekend.
Join us every Monday through Friday at this time for Catholic Chicago. You can stream our programs live or listen to past programs by visiting our website, archchicago.org, and clicking on Radio TV. And please connect with Catholic Chicago on social media.